He came to watch his godson graduate, but one glance across the crowd stopped him cold. A woman he hadn't seen in over 20 years. And beside her, a young girl no older than 18, with eyes that mirrored his, a smile he knew too well, a face he could never forget. It all came rushing back, the affair, the silence, the sudden resignation. Now, standing just a few rows away, was the truth he never expected and the daughter he never knew existed. Hey everyone, welcome back. Or if it's your first time, welcome to a place where true stories speak louder than fiction. Today's story, it's about a powerful man, a forgotten woman, and a moment that changed everything. A secret hidden for nearly 2 decades. And how one unexpected reunion at a graduation revealed the truth. Before we dive in, smash that like button if you believe every truth eventually comes to light. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss a single story that shakes your soul. And drop a comment. What would you do if you found out you had a child this way? Share this video with someone who loves deep, emotional twists and turns. Trust me, stay until the end, because what the millionaire does next might just restore or destroy everything. Let's begin. Get ready for a story that will leave you breathless and question everything you thought you knew about fate and family. He never imagined that upon stepping into a taxi on that rainy night, destiny would be there with a sly smile, ready to unravel his carefully constructed world. Inside the cab, the past awaited him in the face of a woman he never forgot, and in her arms, a child with eyes identical to his own. Stay with me until the very end, because this isn't just another story. It's the best one you'll hear today. Let's dive in. Remember to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and comment your thoughts throughout the story. Your engagement helps us bring you more powerful narratives. The billionaire's blind spot, a daughter's unseen shadow. Arthur Sterling tightened, his grip on the steering wheel of his Bentley Continental, waiting for the traffic light to turn green. The Crestwood City traffic at this hour was infernal, but he barely noticed it. His mind was consumed with the details of the corporate merger he had just finalized. $200 million and 3 years of negotiations culminated today with his signature on a contract that would double the value of Sterling Capital. He should feel euphoric. Yet, as he watched people cross the street, young couples holding hands, parents with their children, elderly people enjoying the spring sun, a familiar sense of emptiness settled in his chest. At 42, Arthur had it all. A fortune among the most significant in the country, properties on 3 continents, a private jet and a car, collection that would make any enthusiast weep, everything except someone to share it with. Delight, change, and Arthur accelerated, heading towards the Westwood University campus. He didn't have to attend this charity event personally. His foundation donated millions each year to university scholarships, but as head of social responsibility, had insisted that his presence would lend greater relevance to the graduation ceremony for the program's first scholarship recipients. It's good for the corporate image, she had told him as he drove. His phone rang with a melody he had assigned to his assistant. He connected the hands-free. Yes, Sarah. Mr. Sterling. A reminder that after the ceremony, you have dinner with the Japanese investors. The chauffeur will be waiting to take you directly to the restaurant. Canceled, he replied without hesitation. Tell them something unexpected came up, and I'll meet them first thing tomorrow morning at my office. A brief but eloquent silence preceded his assistant's response. Sir, these investors flew exclusively from Tokyo for tomorrow. Sarah, he interrupted firmly, but without hostility. I closed a merger with Axon Technologies this morning. I deserve a night to myself. Another silence, this time of resignation. As you wish. I'll rescue. She finally conceded. Do you need anything else? No, thanks. See you tomorrow. He hung up and turned into the campus entrance. A guard immediately recognized his vehicle and directed him to park in the reserved area for special guests. The dean himself awaited him by the auditorium entrance, a smile oscillating between admiration and purely financial. Interest. Mr. Sterling, what an honor to have you with us. The man greeted him, extending his hand. Your generosity has transformed the lives of hundreds of students. Arthur returned the greeting with a firm handshake and a practiced smile. The honor is mine, Dean Peterson. These young people are the future of our country. Prefabricated phrases, the kind of comments journalists love to quote. Arthur uttered them almost automatically as he followed the dean inside the building. A murmur of expectation rippled through the auditorium when they saw him enter. He recognized the glances, curiosity, admiration, envy, even disdain from some academics who likely considered him a mere businessman, without intellectual refinement. If only they knew he had given up a Ph.D. in economics to save the family business after his father's death. But that Arthur had been buried long ago, under layers of corporate success and self-imposed loneliness. The dean guided him to the front row where he would sit among other benefactors and academic authorities. The ceremony would begin shortly. Arthur idly scanned the program. He had been handed speeches, diploma presentations, more speeches. He mentally calculated how long he would have to remain there before he could politely excuse himself. As he waited, his gaze wandered to the auditorium, observing the families, taking their seats, faces brimming with pride, some holding back tears of emotion, parents who had probably sacrificed comforts for their children to get there, grandparents who had perhaps never set foot in a university and now watched their grandchildren graduate. And then he saw her. It was like a physical blow, a jolt that left him momentarily breathless. In the central section, about 10 rows back, a woman with dark hair and olive skin was taking a seat. She wore an elegant red dress with small white flowers, and her hair fell in soft waves over her shoulders. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be her. Clara Hayes. The name flashed in his mind like lightning, illuminating memories he thought were long forgotten. Clara, the woman who had worked as a housekeeper at the Sterling mansion for almost 3 years until her sudden resignation 18 years ago. Arthur straightened in his seat, trying to confirm if it really was her. The distance and angle made it difficult to be completely sure, but something in her posture and the way she slightly tilted her head when she smiled was unmistakably Clara. What is she doing here? He wondered. As he recalled, Clara had no family in Crestwood City. She had come from a town in the southern plains, and after her departure, rumors had circulated among the staff that she had returned to her homeland. And then, as Clara turned to speak to someone beside her, Arthur saw the young woman accompanying her, a student in a blue cap and gown with a golden sash indicating she was graduating with honors. She must have been about 22 with long straight hair and a profile that Arthur's heart stopped for an instant. It was like looking into a mirror, reflecting the past. This young woman had his same gray-green eyes, his same defined jawline, even something in the curve of her smile that he had seen hundreds of times in family photographs. It was impossible, and yet the dates fit with terrifying precision. Clara had left the Sterling mansion abruptly, without saying goodbye, just a few weeks after that night. The night he, newly returned from the States after completing his MBA, had drunk too much, celebrating the success of his first major corporate acquisition. The night he had crossed paths with Clara as she finished cleaning his study. The night that had remained hazy in his memory, buried under a hangover, and the hurried pace of the next day. "Are you all right, Mrs. Sterling?" The dean's voice brought him back to the present. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Perhaps he had. The ghost of a possibility he had never considered. "Perfectly," he replied, his voice slightly strained, just recalling a pending matter. The dean nodded, misinterpreting his perturbation as the typical impatience of a businessman. But Arthur was no longer paying attention. His gaze had returned to a young woman in the blue cap and gown, who was now laughing at something Clara had whispered in her ear. The resemblance was undeniable. Anyone who knew the Sterlings would see it. The same features Arthur had inherited from his father and his father from his grandfather. The genetic mark of a family proud of its lineage. An idea began to form in his mind, terrible in its implications. Could that young woman be? No, there had to be another explanation. Genetic coincidences, a casual resemblance. It had to be that. But as the ceremony began and the dean gave his welcome speech, Arthur couldn't take his eyes off that young woman. And with each passing minute, each gesture he observed, the certainty grew within him. He needed to know. He needed to speak with Clara, to ask her directly, to confront a past that had perhaps returned to completely alter his present and future. What do you think is the biggest fear Arthur is grappling with at this moment? And why do you think Clara never told him? Share your thoughts below. Don't miss a beat of this emotional journey. Like this video and subscribe to our channel now. The applause startled him. The dean had finished his speech and was now introducing the class representative, who would deliver a few words on behalf of her graduating class. It is an honor to present our next speaker. The dean announced with evident pride, graduating with highest honors in international law, recipient of the Sterling Scholarship for Academic Excellence, and recently accepted into a prestigious postgraduate program at Cambridge University. Ladies and gentlemen, Lily Hayes. A new round of applause, this time more enthusiastic, filled the auditorium as a young woman in the blue cap and gown rose from her seat. Arthur watched as Clara briefly embraced her before letting her go toward the stage, tears of pride glistening in her eyes. Lily Hayes, Clara's maiden name, not his, but those eyes, that way of walking with determination, and head held high. Everything about her screamed sterling. As the young woman ascended the podium and adjusted the microphone, Arthur felt the world around him fade. Only she existed to him, and this young woman who almost certainly was his daughter. Lily began to speak with impressive eloquence and confidence. Her speech about the responsibility of the privilege towards the less fortunate, about how education was the true social equalizer, resonated with conviction that Arthur hadn't felt in years. He listened to every word, every inflection of her voice, searching for echoes of himself within her, and he found them in her argumentative style, in how she logically structured each point before moving to the next, the way she occasionally raised an eyebrow when emphasizing something important, gestures he unconsciously made during his corporate presentations. There was no doubt. He couldn't deny it any longer. He had a daughter he never knew, who had grown up without his presence, without his name, without the privileges that would have been hers by right. A daughter who, ironically, had earned a scholarship bearing his family's name and was now graduating with honors. Fate certainly had a twisted sense of humor. When Lily finished her speech, the auditorium erupted in applause. Arthur found himself standing with the rest of the attendees, clapping mechanically as his mind buzzed with unanswered questions. Why had Clara never told him? Had it been her own decision, or had he in some way made it clear he didn't want to know? What should he do now? As Lily returned to her seat, receiving congratulations along the way, Arthur made a decision. He would wait for the ceremony to end and find the right moment to approach Clara. He needed answers, but he also needed to be careful. He couldn't just barge into that young woman's life and disrupt her entire world with claims of paternity. The ceremony continued with the diploma presentations. When Lily Hayes was called, Arthur watched as she ascended the stage again, this time to receive her degree. From his front row seat, he could see her more clearly. The resemblance was even more striking up close. After receiving her diploma, Lily briefly glanced toward the area where the authorities and benefactors were seated. For an instant, her eyes, his own eyes, met Arthur's. There was no recognition in them, only the polite gaze of someone observing a stranger. But for Arthur, that brief eye contact was like an electric current. In that precise moment, as the young woman descended the stage with her diploma in hand, Arthur Sterling knew his life had just changed forever. That, the priorities that had governed his existence for decades, power, money, prestige, were now crumbling before a new reality. He had a daughter, and somehow he had to find the courage to confront that truth and its consequences, whatever they might be. The rest of the ceremony passed for Arthur as if he were underwater. He heard muffled voices, saw slowed, movements while his mind worked at full speed. How much time had truly passed? Since that night? 18 years. He mentally calculated. Yes, that would make sense. Lily seemed to be 2 or 23, which would mean Clara was already pregnant when she left her employment. The revelation caused a pang of guilt. Had Clara tried to communicate with him, he remembered that after her departure, he had barely paid attention to the matter. His housekeeper had informed him of her resignation. He had distractedly signed a corresponding severance, and the matter had been forgotten amidst corporate acquisitions and international travels. Now, sitting in the front row of that auditorium, Arthur Sterling faced the consequences of his indifference. The dean announced that, after the diploma presentation, there would be a reception in the campus gardens. Perfect. That would be his opportunity to approach Clara without drawing too much attention. When the official ceremony finally concluded, Arthur politely excused himself from conversations with academics and authorities who were trying to capture his attention. With determined but cautious steps, he headed towards the gardens where families were already beginning to gather in small groups, taking photographs and toasting with champagne. He scanned the crowd looking for that red dress that had initially caught his eye. He found her near an ornamental fountain. Clara was holding a glass, conversing animatedly with an older woman Arthur didn't recognize. Lily was not in sight, probably surrounded by classmates. It was now or never. Arthur took a deep breath and approached, aware that every step led him toward a confrontation that would change his life in unpredictable ways. When he was a few feet away, Clara casually turned her head and saw him. Recognition was instant. Her eyes widened in surprise, and Arthur could see her hand tighten around her glass. The older woman beside her noticed the change and asked her something he couldn't quite hear. Clara responded without taking her eyes off Arthur, and the woman excused herself, leaving them alone. Finally, they were face to face. "Mr. Sterling," she greeted him with a controlled but tense voice. "What a surprised to see you here." Her regional accent had softened over the years, but was still present, like background music in her words. Arthur observed the changes in her face, the subtle lines around her eyes, an elegance and self-assurance she didn't possess when she worked in his house. "Clara," he responded, surprised at how natural her name sounded on his lips, as if he had spoken it yesterday, and not almost 2 decades ago. It's been a long time. An uncomfortable silence settled between them. So many unanswered questions. So many possible recriminations. Arthur decided to get straight to the point. "Your daughter gave an impressive speech." Clara's eyes narrowed slightly, evaluating him. "Thank you. Lily has always had a gift for words. She graduated with honors, international law, and she also got a scholarship to Cambridge. You must be very proud." Clara nodded without letting down her guard. "I am. She's worked very hard to get here." Arthur took a breath, preparing for the crucial question. "Clara, I have to ask you something." "Lily," he paused, searching for the right words. "The resemblance is remarkable." Clara's expression hardened. "What do you want, Arthur? Why are you approaching me now after so many years?" The coldness in her tone surprised him. It wasn't the reaction he expected. He had anticipated fear, perhaps shame, or even pleading, but not this almost defiant firmness. "I didn't know," he responded with sincerity. "Until today, when I saw you both together, it never occurred to me that I could have a don't say it." Clara interrupted him with a firm whisper, looking around to make sure no one was listening. "Not here. It's Lily's graduation day. You won't ruin it with this." Arthur felt a pang of irritation at her imperative, tone, but he held it back. She was right. This was neither the time nor the place. Of course, he conceded. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to intrude on her celebration, but we need to talk Clara privately. If Lily is, she's not. She cut him off. Arthur stared at her incredulous. Clara, I've seen her. She has my eyes, my profile, the way she arches her eyebrow when she's making an important point. You can't deny it. Clara looked away for an instant, and that gesture told Arthur everything he needed to know. Leave us alone, she finally said, lowering her voice. We've been fine without you for 22 years. We don't need you to show up now and complicate our lives. So you admit it? Arthur insisted. Lily is my daughter. Clara looked at him with a mix of resignation and defiance. What does it matter what I say? You've already decided what you want to believe. I have a right to know the truth. All right? Clara let out a brief, bitter laugh. What do you know about rights when it comes to Lily? You weren't there when she was born premature, and the doctors didn't know if she would survive. You weren't there during the sleepless nights, the childhood illnesses, the first steps, the nightmares. You didn't help pay the bills when we barely made ends meet. Nor were you at her piano recital or school meetings. And now you come talking about rights. Each word was like a blow to Arthur. He briefly imagined all those scenes Clara described. A fragile baby in an incubator, a crying toddler in the middle of the night, a teenager playing the piano, moments he would never reclaim. I didn't know any of this, Clara, he said softly. If you had told me, what would you have done? She interrupted. Him. Married the housekeeper, or perhaps offer me money to discreetly disappear, preserving the sterling honor. The implicit accusation stung him, mainly because he couldn't deny with certainty that he might have reacted that way at the time. The 24-year-old Arthur, ambitious and image-conscious, might have considered an employee's pregnancy an inconvenience to be solved, not a life to embrace. I don't know, he admitted honestly, but I deserved the chance to decide. I deserved to know I had a daughter. Clara seemed to calm slightly at his sincerity. Perhaps, she conceded, but you can't change the past, Arthur. What's done is done. Lily has grown up without a father, and she has thrived. She is brilliant, compassionate, and strong. She doesn't need her world to crumble now. I don't want to crumble her world, Arthur protested. I just want to know her, to know who she is. Perhaps help her in some way. Clara offered an ironic smile. Help her? You already have without knowing it. Your foundation gave her the scholarship that allowed her to study at Westwood. There's a certain poetic justice in that, don't you think? Arthur had not considered that irony. His money had financed his own daughter's education without his knowing. Fate certainly had a peculiar sense of humor. Clara, please, he insisted, give me a chance. We can do this calmly, on your terms. I don't intend to barge into her life and disrupt everything. I just want the opportunity to make up for some of the lost time. Clara studied him in silence, as if evaluating the sincerity of his words. Finally, she took a card from her purse and handed it to him. My number, she explained. Call me in a few days when the graduation euphoria has passed. We'll talk then. Arthur took the card, feeling it was a small victory. At least she hadn't flatly rejected the possibility of future dialogue. Thank you, he said, tucking the card into his inner jacket pocket. I'll call you. At that moment, he saw Lily approaching them, surrounded by friends who were laughing and conversing animatedly. The young woman, still in her blue gown, but without the cap, seemed to glow with happiness. Arthur felt a lump in his throat as he saw her up close, confirming what he already knew. She was undeniably his daughter. I must go, Clara said hurriedly. Not a word of this to Lily. Understood. Not today. Promise me. I promise, he assured her. Clara nodded briefly and turned to greet her daughter with a hug. Arthur discreetly moved away, blending into the crowd before Lily could notice his presence. As he walked toward the campus exit, he felt a strange mix of emotions: the sharp pain of having lost 22 years of his daughter's life, anger at himself for not asking, for not knowing, for not being there. But there was also hope, a small, fragile hope that it wasn't too late to be a part of Lily's life in some way. His phone vibrated. It was Sarah, his assistant. "Mr. Sterling, the Japanese investors have agreed to reschedule dinner for tomorrow. Should I send the car to pick you up?" Arthur looked back one last time. In the distance, he could see Clara and Lily laughing together, surrounded by friends and colleagues, celebrating the young woman's achievement. A perfect scene he hadn't helped build. "No, Sarah," he replied. "I'll drive myself. I need to think." As he walked towards a Bentley, Arthur Sterling understood that for the first time in many years, he had something more important than multi-million-dollar contracts or corporate mergers. He had a reason to rethink his entire life. He had a daughter, and somehow he had to find a way to approach her without destroying what Clara had built with so much effort. Given Arthur's profound realization and Clara's cautious openness, what challenges do you anticipate in their journey to rebuild their relationship, and what roles will Lily play in this process? Share your thoughts below. Don't miss the powerful developments. Like this video and subscribe to our channel for more. The next 2 weeks passed for Arthur Sterling as a strange mix of corporate routine and deep introspection. In the mornings, he led meetings on bus, signed contracts, and made decisions affecting thousands of employees. In the evenings, alone in his penthouse, overlooking Crestwood City, he found himself contemplating old family photographs, searching the faces of his ancestors for the features he had recognized in Lily. More than once he had pulled Clara's card from his wallet, observing the number written in neat, decisive handwriting. More than once he had been on the verge of calling, but something stopped him. What exactly was he going to say? How could he condense 22 years of absence into a phone conversation? 5 days after graduation, he finally made up his mind. It was a Sunday afternoon, a time when he assumed Clara would be home and not at her job, whatever that might be. He realized he had no idea what she did. Now, he dialed the number, feeling a strange nervousness he hadn't experienced since his adolescence. 3 rings later, he heard her voice. "Hello, Clara, it's Arthur Sterling." A brief silence on the other end of the line. Barely enough time for her to process who was calling. "I thought maybe you wouldn't call," she finally responded. "I told you I would," he said, noticing a certain stiffness in his own voice. "Can we meet to talk?" Another silence. Longer this time. Arthur waited, knowing that forcing the situation would only make things worse. "Tomorrow," Clara said at last. "Lily has classes all day, and I have the afternoon free. We can meet at the Willow Cafe near Central Park Gardens at 4 o'clock. "The Willow Cafe," he repeated, somewhat surprised by the choice of such a public place. "It's a neutral spot," she explained as if reading his mind. "And it's not near where we live, so there's less chance of running into anyone Lily knows." Arthur understood. Then Clara was being cautious, protecting her daughter from potential rumors or accidental encounters. "All right," he accepted. "I'll be there at 4 o'clock. "One more thing, Arthur," she added in a tone that borked. "No argument. Come alone." He was certainly surprised by the request. Did Clara really think he would bring lawyers to their first meeting? "Of course," he replied, somewhat offended. "This is a personal matter, not business." "Good," she said, and then, after a pause, "Until tomorrow, then." The call ended before Arthur could say goodbye. He put the phone on the coffee table and walked towards his penthouse window. Crestwood City stretched before him, a city he knew intimately from the privileged distance of the heights, but in which 2 people now existed who completely altered his perception of the world. Somewhere among those thousands of lights beginning to turn on at dusk were Clara and Lily, his daughter. He still struggled to grasp that reality. At 3:30 the next afternoon, Arthur was already seated at a discreet table at the Willow Cafe. He had decided to arrive early to familiarize himself with the place and perhaps calm his nerves. It was an elegant but not ostentatious establishment with retro air that evoked the old cafes of mid-20th century. Crestwood City, cream-colored walls, polished wood, bronze-framed mirrors, and a marble counter dominating one side. He wasn't wearing one of his usual tailored suits. Instead, he had opted for a more casual outfit, dark trousers, and a navy cashmere sweater. He wanted to project an approachable image, far from the intimidating business magnate who appeared in economic magazines. At 4 o'clock sharp, the cafe door opened and Clara entered. She wore a pearl gray pants suit and her hair pulled back in a low bun, giving her a professional and serene appearance. Arthur immediately straightened and raised his hand for her to see him. She nodded briefly and walked towards his table. "You're early," she commented as she took a seat opposite him. "I prefer to wait than to make others wait," Arthur responded. "May I offer you anything?" Clara ordered a latte when the waiter approached. Arthur opted for an espresso. When they were alone again, an uncomfortable silence settled between them. So many years, so many unanswered questions. "You came," he finally said, breaking the ice. "I promised," she replied, holding his gaze, though I hesitated until the last moment. "Why?" Clara rested her hands on the table, intertwining her fingers. "Because this complicates everything. Arthur, Lily's life, my life, what we built. It doesn't have to be that way," he argued. "We can handle this discreetly at your pace." She let out a brief, humorless laugh. "Do you really think something like this can be kept discreet? You're Arthur Sterling. Your face appears in magazines and newspapers. If you suddenly start taking an interest in a young graduate, people will talk. And Lily isn't foolish. She'll see the resemblance. She'll ask questions. Then perhaps we should tell her the truth," he suggested, "before she finds out on her own." Clara's eyes hardened. "The truth? Which truth exactly, Arthur?" "That her biological father never knew of her existence because I didn't tell him, or that he didn't care enough to look for me when I disappeared." The blow was direct and precise. Arthur felt the familiar pang of guilt. "Both are true, I suppose," he admitted, his voice. "I didn't know about her, and I also didn't concern myself with your departure beyond signing your severance. I can't change that, Clara, but you can try to make things right from now on." Clara studied him in silence, as if evaluating the sincerity of his words. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why now? You have everything anyone could desire. Why complicate your life with a daughter you don't know?" It was a good question. Arthur had spent the last few days asking himself the same thing. "Because for my entire life I've chased things I thought were important," he responded with honesty. "Money, power, recognition. And now at 42, I realize none of that truly matters. I'm alone, Clara. I've built an empire, but I have no one to share it with. I have no one I truly care about, and no one who cares about me beyond my bank account." He paused, surprised by his own vulnerability. He had never voiced these feelings aloud. And suddenly he continued, "I discover I have a daughter, a brilliant, eloquent young woman who has achieved what I would have given her, without a second thought, entirely on her own merit. I can't ignore that. I don't want to ignore it." Clara seemed to consider his words as the waiters served their coffees and left them alone again. "And what exactly do you intend to do?" she asked, stirring her coffee distractedly. "What do you expect from this?" "I don't know," Arthur admitted. "I've never been a father. I don't know how to be one. I just know I want to know her, to know who she is. Perhaps help her in some way, if she allows me." "Lily doesn't need your money," Clara said firmly. "I've made sure. She never lacked anything important. I don't just mean money," he clarified. "She has talent ambition. If she's interested in international law, I have contacts that could be useful. I know people at Cambridge where she'll be studying. Clara looked at him with skepticism. And what would you tell her? Hi, I'm a friend of your mother's who coincidentally wants to help you with your career. Arthur sighed. She was right, of course. Any approach would be suspicious without a clear explanation. What does she know about her father? He finally asked. Clara lowered her gaze to her cup, the basics. That we met when I worked in Crestwood City. That it was a brief relationship and that he never knew about the pregnancy because I decided not to tell him. Does she hate me? No, Clara responded, shaking her head. You can't hate someone who doesn't exist in your life. For a long time, she didn't even ask about you. She had her maternal grandfather who was like a father to her until he passed away 5 years ago. Later, when she started asking more specific questions, I told her the truth, that you had been someone important to me for a brief time, but that our worlds were too different. Did you tell her my name? No, only that you were from Crestwood City, from a good family. I suppose I fear that someday she might look for you. Arthur nodded, processing the information. He understood then the constant fear Clara must have felt for years, that her daughter would discover the truth, that she would look for him, that he would reject her, or worse, that he would try to take her away somehow. I would never have done that, Clara, he said softly, guessing her thoughts. I would never have tried to take her away from you. I don't know, she replied with sincerity. I didn't know you well enough to risk it. You were the son of the master of the house, an ambitious young man with a brilliant future. I was just a girl who cleaned your rooms. What would have happened if I had shown up pregnant? Would you have even believed me? The question hung between them, laden with painful implications. Arthur wanted to say yes, that he would have believed her, that he would have taken responsibility, but he couldn't lie. He didn't know how his 24-year-old self would have reacted to such news. What do you want to do now? He finally asked, subtly shifting conversation. How will we proceed? Clara stared at him as if making an important decision. I need time, she finally said, to think, to decide how and when to talk to Lily. This will change her life. Do you understand? Everything she believes about herself, about her origins. I understand, Arthur nodded. Will take all the time needed. And I need your word, Clara added with intensity. Your word that you will respect my decisions in this, that you will not try to contact her on your own, that you will not look for her on social media, that you will not follow her. You have my word, Arthur promised without hesitation. We'll do this your way. Clara, you're the one who raised her for 22 years. I trust your judgment. A flicker of surprise crossed Clara's face at those last words. Perhaps she didn't expect the powerful Arthur, Sterling, to so easily relinquish control of the situation. All right, she finally said, I'll talk to her after her final exams in 2 weeks. Arthur nodded, feeling a mix of relief and anticipation. 2 weeks? After 22 years of unconscious absence, he could wait 2 more weeks. Thank you, Clara, he said sincerely, for giving me this opportunity. She finished her coffee and placed the cup on the saucer with a soft clink. I'm not doing it for you, she clarified. I'm doing it for Lily because she deserves to know the truth about her origins, and because despite everything, I believe she has the right to decide whether she wants to know you or not. Arthur understood. He didn't expect gratitude or forgiveness, only a chance. I know, she replied, and I appreciate it all the same. When Clara stood to leave, Arthur noticed for the first time a glimmer of vulnerability in her eyes, a hint of the young woman she had been 22 years ago. I love her more than anything in this world, Arthur, she said softly. She's my whole life. Please don't hurt her. And with those words, she walked away, leaving Arthur with the unspoken promise to protect the only truly valuable thing Clara had, the heart of the daughter they both shared. What profound impact do you believe this conversation and Arthur's promise will have on his character and his future actions? Share your predictions in the comments. Don't miss the heartwarming culmination of this incredible story. Like this video and subscribe to our channel now. The next 2 weeks were for Arthur and exercise and patience he had never before practiced. The man accustomed to everything happening at the speed dictated by his orders now found himself subject to the timing of others. It was a strange, almost humbling sensation, but also revealing. To distract himself, he plunged into work with renewed intensity. The merger with Axon Technologies required complex restructuring, strategic layoffs, personnel reassignments, difficult decisions he normally made with the calculated coldness of a successful businessman. But now, every time he signed a layoff, he wondered if that person had children, if someone depended on that salary to pay university tuition, textbooks, a future. For the first time in his career, Arthur Sterling began to see faces behind the numbers, lives behind the budget cuts. Sarah, he called his assistant one afternoon as he reviewed the layoff list proposed by Human Resources. How much would it cost us to implement a reemployment program for the personnel we're letting go? The woman looked at him in surprise. In the 8 years she had worked for him, he had never shown such concern for employees who were let go after an acquisition. I'd have to run the numbers, sir, she replied, professional as always, but it would be a considerable investment. Do it, Arthur ordered, and I also want to report on how many of those employees have college-age children. Could we expand the scholarship program to include them? Sarah's gaze reflected thinly veiled bewilderment, but she nodded without asking questions. It wasn't her job to question the boss's decisions, no matter how unusual they were. When he was alone, Arthur leaned back in his Italian leather chair and contemplated the panoramic view of Crestwood City from his 30th floor office. What was happening to him? Since when did he care about the fate of employees he didn't even know? The answer came with crystal clarity. Ever since he found out he had a daughter, since he discovered there was a person in the world who carried his blood, who shared his genes, who could have grown up under his protection, but who instead had to make her own way without the advantages his surname would have provided. The thought gave him a pang of guilt, immediately followed by another less familiar emotion, pride. Lily had graduated with honors, had earned a prestigious scholarship, had been accepted into Cambridge University, and all without the Sterling influence. Without the doors his money would have opened, could more have been achieved. With his resources, perhaps, but there was something admirable in what Clara and Lily had accomplished on their own. 18 days after graduation, 18 exact days since he first saw his daughter, Arthur received a text message from Clara. I'll talk to her today. I'll call you tomorrow. Those 10 words left him in a state of nervousness he didn't remember ever experiencing. That night, he barely slept, imagining scenarios, reactions, possibilities. How would Lily take the news? Would she feel curiosity, anger, indifference? Would she want to meet him? Or, on the contrary, reject any contact? The next day passed with exasperating slowness. Arthur Can led 2 important meetings, unable to concentrate on anything but the pending call. As dusk fell, when he was beginning to fear Clara had changed her mind, his personal phone rang. Clara, he answered immediately without waiting for the second ring. Arthur, her voice sounded tired. I've spoken with Lily. A pause that seemed eternal to him, and he finally asked, unable to contain his anxiety. How did she take it? Clara sighed on the other end of the line. I expected. Surprise? Confusion. A bit of anger at me for having hidden it for so long. She needs to process the information. Have you told her exactly who I am? Yes, I've told her everything. That I worked in your house, how we met, why I decided not to tell you about the pregnancy. I've shown her some old photos I kept so she could see the resemblance for herself. Arthur felt a lump in his throat, images of a past he didn't know. Lost, irreversible moments. And has she said anything about me? About meeting me? Another pause. She needs time. Arthur, Clara finally responded. It's a lot to take in. Discovering that your biological father is one of the richest men in Spain isn't exactly everyday news. I understand, he said, though his disappointment was evident in his voice. Of course, she needs time. But Clara hesitated for a moment. She's asked about you. Who are you really beyond? What's in the business news? I think she's processing the idea. A spark of hope ignited in Arthur's chest. That's good, isn't it? It's natural. Clara, qualified. Curiosity. Don't get your hopes too high yet. Arthur sensed, though she couldn't see it, that after 22 years, he could wait a little longer. What have you told her about me? He asked, genuinely curious. The truth, Clara responded. That you were an ambitious young man when we met. That you were never cruel to me, but not especially kind either. That we belonged to completely different worlds. Have you told her I want to meet her? Yes, Clara admitted. I've told her you seemed very affected upon discovering her at graduation, that you sought me out afterward, and that you expressed your desire to be part of her life to the extent she allows. Arthur took a deep breath. At least Clara had been fair in that aspect, presenting him as someone interested, not as a heartless man who wanted nothing to do with his daughter. Thank you for that. I haven't lied to her, if that's what you think, Clara clarified. I've told her exactly what I perceive in our encounter, that you seem sincerely interested in getting to know her. A silence settled between them, laden with unasked questions. What happens now? Arthur finally asked. Now we wait, Clara responded. Lily needs to process all this. She's finished her exams, but she's preparing to move to Cambridge. Her M starts in September. Can I help with anything? He offered, immediately thinking of the expenses that move and master's degree would entail. No, the answer was blunt. I already told you, Arthur. We don't need your money. Lily has a full scholarship, and I can afford to help her with living expenses. Arthur held back the automatic retort that rose in his mind. For him, who could buy apartments in London, without blinking, it was almost incomprehensible that someone would reject his financial help. But he understood Clara's pride, the independence she had cultivated for over 2 decades. All right, he conceded. But if you change your mind, or if Lily needs anything, I'll let you know, Clara completed. Though both knew that was unlikely to happen, there was another pause, and when Clara spoke again, her voice sounded slightly different, almost vulnerable. There's something else, Arthur. Something Lily asked me to ask you. Yes. Arthur's heart raced. What is it? She wants to know why now. Why, after all these years? Do you want to meet her? If it's simple curiosity, a passing whim, or Clara hesitated before continuing. If you really care about the person she is, not just the fact that she's your biological daughter. The question hit Arthur like a punch. It was a profound question going straight to the core of his motivations. A superficial or calculated answer wouldn't suffice. Lily, through Clara, was asking for absolute honesty. It's a fair question, he finally admitted, and the answer is complex. Yes, at first it was a surprise, the impact of discovering I have a daughter. But then when I saw her speak at that podium, when I listened to her speech, when I watched how she moved and gestured, something changed within me. He paused, organizing his thoughts, wanted to be as sincere as possible. I've spent the last 20 years building an empire, Clara. I've accumulated more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. I have properties I barely visit, cars I barely drive, and at the end of the day, I return to an empty penthouse where the only sound is my own footsteps. His voice broke slightly, but he continued. When I saw Lily, I didn't just see my biological daughter. I saw a brilliant, passionate young woman with convictions. I saw something genuine in a world that for me has become increasingly artificial. And I realized that perhaps I could learn much more from her than I could ever teach her. Silence on the other end of the line. Arthur didn't know if his words had reached Clara, if she believed in his sincerity. "I'll tell her exactly what you said," she finally responded, her voice soft, word for word. "Thank you," he said. "It's the truth, Clara. I'm not looking for an heir to my fortune or someone to perpetuate the sterling name. I just want to know the extraordinary person you've raised." Another silence, this one shorter. "I'll call you if there's any news," Clara said, returning to her practical tone. "In the meantime, give her her space. This isn't easy for any of us, but especially for her." "I understand," Arthur assured her. "I'll wait as long as it takes." When the call ended, Arthur found himself contemplating the Crestwood City sunset. From his window, the city was tinged with gold and purple, colors he had always admired from the privileged distance, but which somehow now seemed more intense, more real. Lily was considering meeting him. It wasn't an immediate rejection. It wasn't indifference. There were questions, doubts, perhaps even resentment, but also curiosity, interest. It was more than he had hoped for, more than he probably deserved. For the first time in a long time, Arthur Sterling felt something akin to hope, and with that unfamiliar motion warming his chest, he realized that he could no longer imagine a future where Lily was not part of his life in some way. Whatever happened, that young woman's existence had changed something fundamental in him, and for that, even if she decided never to meet him, she had already given him an invaluable gift, the ability to feel something beyond the cold corporate calculation that had governed his life for too long. What specific qualities do you think Arthur will continue to develop as he navigates this complex relationship with Clara and hopes to connect with Lily? Share your insights. Don't miss the heartwarming culmination of this incredible story. Like this video and subscribe to our channel now. The text message arrived on a Saturday morning 3 weeks after the conversation with Clara. Arthur was in his penthouse reviewing reports while drinking coffee when his phone vibrated on the glass table. "Lily wants to see you. Tomorrow, 11 a.m. Central Park Gardens by the pond. Come. Alone." Arthur read the message 3 times, feeling his pulse quicken with each word. It was real. He was going to meet his daughter, not as a distant spectator at a graduation ceremony, but face to face in a conversation 22 years in the making unknowingly. His fingers trembled slightly as he replied, "I'll be there. Thank you, Clara." The response was immediate and concise. "Don't disappoint her." Those 3 words held a world of implicit warnings, of maternal protection, of weariness, accumulated over years. Arthur understood the message in its full scope. This was probably his only chance. The rest of the day passed in a state of growing nervousness. He can let a golf game with important shareholders, something he had never done before. He paced his penthouse like a caged animal, mentally rehearsing what he would say, how he would present himself, what image he wanted to project. Should he dress formally or casually, bring a gift, or would that be too pretentious? Talk business to impress her, or avoid that topic completely? He had never felt so insecure, so devoid of the certainties that govern his daily life. Finally, he opted for authenticity. If he wanted to build a genuine relationship with Lily, he would have to start by being himself, not a calculated version designed to make a certain impression. Sunday dawned clear, one of those perfect spring days in Crestwood City, with an intensely blue sky and a gentle breeze rustling the leaves of the trees. Arthur arrived at Central Park Gardens half an hour early, not out of impatience but caution. He wanted to familiarize himself with the surroundings, find a quiet bench where they could talk without interruption. He wore dark trousers and a blue shirt. No tie, casual but elegant. In his left hand, he carried a small package wrapped in silver paper. He had hesitated greatly about bringing a gift, but finally decided it would be an appropriate gesture. It was nothing ostentatious or expensive, just something symbolic he had kept for years without knowing why. At 5 minutes to Ayava 11, he saw her approaching from the main path, Lily walked with determined stride, dressed in jeans, a white blouse, and a light jacket. Her hair was loose, wavy from a breeze, and her eyes, his own eyes, scanned the area around the pond, looking for him. Arthur stood, feeling a lump in his throat. It was like looking at a reflection, distorted by time, a version of himself transformed into a beautiful, independent young woman. The sterling genetics were undeniable. The same jawline, the same eye shape, even something in her posture that recalled photographs of his own youth. When their gazes met, Arthur saw the immediate recognition on Lily's face. A brief pause in her steps, a moment of hesitation, and then the determination to continue forward towards him, towards her biological father. "Good morning," she greeted when she was a few steps away, her voice firm but cautious. "You must be Arthur Sterling." The formality surprised him slightly, but he understood it was her way of maintaining a certain emotional distance, of setting boundaries from the start. "Good morning, Lily," he responded, resisting the urge to extend a hand, or worse yet, try to hug her. "Thank you for agreeing to see me." She nodded briefly, studying him intently. Arthur wondered what she would see. The businessman from the economic magazines, her mother's former employer, or simply a stranger who happened to have her same eyes. "We can sit there," Arthur suggested, pointing to a bench partially shaded by a large chestnut tree. "If that's all right with you." Lily nodded again and followed him to bench. They sat, leaving a discreet space between them. The pond stretched before them with its small boats and ducks swimming peacefully, oblivious to the human drama unfolding just a few feet away. "I wasn't sure you'd come," Arthur confessed, breaking the silence. "And I would have understood. I wasn't sure either until last night," she replied with honesty. "But I think I needed answers face to face." Her voice was melodious, but with a tone of firmness Arthur recognized as his own, the sterling determination, as his family used to call it. "You can ask me anything you want," he offered. "I'll try to be completely honest." Lily looked at him directly with an intensity that was almost intimidating. "Why did you never ask about my mother when she disappeared?" was her first question, direct and blunt. "If you had whatever you had, didn't it seem strange that she left without saying goodbye?" Arthur didn't expect her to start there, but he appreciated her frankness. He deserved the same sincerity in return. "The truth is, I barely noticed," he admitted, feeling shame as he said it aloud. "It was a chaotic time in my life. I had just returned from the States. I was taking over the family business, traveling constantly. The domestic staff," he paused, aware how bad it sounded, "wasn't on my radar. When I was informed she had resigned, I simply authorized her severance and moved on." Lily's expression remained neutral, but Arthur could perceive her silent judgment. "I'm not proud of that," he added. "I was young, arrogant, and focused solely on my ambitions. It's not an excuse, just an explanation." Lily nodded slowly, processing his words. "My mother says you never knew about the pregnancy," she continued. "That she made the decision not to inform you. Is that true?" "Completely," Arthur confirmed. "I didn't know you existed until I saw you at the graduation. The physical resemblance, it was like looking at myself in a mirror from the past." A brief smile crossed Lily's face. "Yes, everyone says I have the sterling look. Now I understand why." Arthur felt a strange warmth hearing her acknowledge that connection, however superficial. "Does it bother you," Lily asked suddenly, "that I carry the Hay name instead of Sterling?" The question took him by surprise. He had never considered it from that angle. "No," he responded with sincerity. "Clara raised you alone against all odds. You deserve to wear her name with pride." Something subtly changed in Lily's expression, as if that answer had knocked down a small barrier. "What exactly do you want from me, Mr. Sterling?" she asked, cutting straight to the heart of the matter. "I understand you have no other children. Are you looking for an heir to your fortune? Someone to continue the family?" Legacy? Or is it simple curiosity about a late discovery? Arthur took a deep breath. It was the same question Clara had relayed, but hearing it directly from Lily with that mix of vulnerability and challenge demanded an even more honest answer. What I want is to know you, Lily, he said softly. Not as my heir, not as a perpetuator of the Sterling name, but as the person you are, the person Clara has raised and who has achieved so much on her own merit. He paused, carefully choosing his next words. I can't reclaim the 22 years I've lost. I can't pretend to be a father when I haven't been present for any important moment in your life. But perhaps we can build something new, a relationship based on the present, not on the past. We don't share. Lily observed him in silence, as if evaluating the sincerity of his words. Finally, her gaze shifted to the small package Arthur still held in his hand. What's that? She asked. Arthur looked at the silver package as if he had just remembered its existence. It's a small gift, he responded, extending it towards her with some shyness. It's nothing ostentatious, I promise. Just something I think you should have. Lily hesitated for a moment before accepting it. She carefully unwrapped the paper, revealing a small blue velvet box. Upon opening it, she found an antique silver pocket watch. On the outer lid was engraved the sterling code of arms. Inside an inscription, lost time never returns. Time to come is yours to mold with love. Your grandfather. It was my father's, Arthur explained as Lily examined the watch. He gave it to me when I turned 18. I always thought someday I would pass it on to my son or daughter. It's a family tradition. Lily ran her fingers over the engraving, visibly moved despite her attempt to maintain composure. It's beautiful, she admitted softly, but I can't accept it. It's too valuable a family heirloom. It's yours by right, Arthur insisted gently. You are a Sterling Lily, even if you don't carry the name. My father's blood, your grandfather's runs through your veins. He would have been proud to know you. Something glistened in Lily's eyes, an emotion she tried to hold back. I don't even know who he was, she said with a barely perceptible tremor in her voice. I know nothing about that part of my family. His name was Robert. Arthur responded, feeling a lump in his throat as he spoke of his father. He was a fair, hard-working man. He built sterling capital from scratch with solid principles. He loved classical music, especially Vivaldi, and he had your same smile. A solitary tear rolled down Lily's cheek. She quickly wiped it away as if embarrassed by that moment of vulnerability. There are many stories, Arthur continued softly, many photographs. If someday you want to know that part of your history, I'll be happy to share it with you. Stood Lily closed the watch box and squeezed it lightly in her hand as if making an important decision. I'll think about it, she finally said. Thank you for the gift. It's meaningful. Arthur nodded, understanding that this small object had achieved what 1,000 words would not have, establishing a first bridge between them, a tangible recognition of their biological connection. I must go, Lily announced, standing. I have a lot to do before my trip to Cambridge. Of course, Arthur responded, standing as well. When do you leave? In 3 weeks, Arthur nodded, mentally calculating the little time remaining. Do you think? He began, uncertainly. Do you think we could see each other again before you leave? Lily looked at him, still holding the watch box in her hand. Maybe, she responded, and in that small word, Arthur found more hope than he had felt in years. I'll give you my number. You can text me. They exchanged numbers under the spring. Son of Central Park Gardens, surrounded by families spending their Sunday, unaware of the drama silently unfolding on that bench. See you soon, Mr. Sterling, Lily said, taking a step back. ARR, he corrected gently. You can call me Arthur. She smiled almost imperceptibly. See you soon, Arthur. And as he watched her walk away along the same path she had arrived, Arthur Sterling understood that he had just lived the most important moment of his life. Not when he closed his first major acquisition, not when Sterling Capital became a multinational giant, but now when his daughter had accepted, at least provisionally, the possibility of him being part of her future. What do you anticipate will be the biggest challenge for Arthur and Lily as they try to build a relationship from scratch after 22 years of missed time? Share your thoughts below. Don't miss the heartwarming culmination of this incredible story. Like this video and subscribe to our channel now. The next 2 years, the snow fell softly over Cambridge University, transforming the academic city into a fairy tale landscape. Arthur Sterling gazed at the flakes through the restaurant window as he checked his watch. He had arrived 15 minutes early, a habit he had never abandoned, despite the significant changes in his life over the past 2 years. The Randall Hotel, with its Victorian elegance, offered the perfect setting for the occasion. Arthur had reserved a discreet table away from the bustle where they could converse quietly. It was a special day after all. The restaurant door opened, letting in a gust of cold air, and Lily, wrapped in a red coat, her nose slightly red from the cold. Arthur immediately stood, feeling the same pride and emotion that overwhelmed him every time he saw his daughter. "Happy birthday, Lily." He greeted her as she reached the table, leaning in to kiss her cheek naturally, a gesture that had taken months to feel comfortable for both of them. "Thanks, Daddy," she replied with a smile, taking off her coat before sitting down. Arthur still felt a warm surprise every time he heard that word. Daddy. It had been only 8 months since Lily had started calling him that during a visit to Crestwood City, where they had explored the National Art Museum together. It had been spontaneous, natural, and had marked a before and after in their relationship. "How was the exam?" he asked as the waiter served 2 glasses of the champagne he had pre-ordered. "Brutal," Lily replied with a grimace. "But I think I did well. Professor Davies is demanding but fair." "I'm sure you aced it," Arthur affirmed with conviction. "You have the sterling brain and your mother's tenacity." Lily smiled at the mention of Clara. The relationship between the 3 of them had evolved surprisingly during these 2 years, from initial tension to a respectful dynamic, and finally to a kind of cautious but genuine friendship. "What time does Mommy arrive?" Lily asked, checking her own watch, the same one Arthur had given her that day in the park, which she had had adapted to wear on her wrist. "Her flight lands at 4, Arthur responded. "I've sent a car to pick her up at Heathrow. She'll be here for dinner." It was the first time Clara had visited Cambridge since Lily had started her studies. During the first year, it had been Arthur who traveled regularly, gradually building his relationship with his daughter while scrupulously respecting the boundaries that both she and Clara had established. The waiter handed them the menus and discreetly withdrew. Arthur observed his daughter as she studied the options with the same concentration she applied to everything. Her hair was pulled back in a high ponytail, highlighting the features she had inherited from him: the jawline, the shape of the eyes, but her expressiveness, her warmth. That was, "Oh, Clara, I have something for you," Arthur said when they finally ordered a birthday gift. He pulled an envelope from his inner jacket pocket and handed it to Lily. She looked at it with curiosity before opening it. Inside was an official letter with the letterhead of the Sterling Education Foundation. Her eyes quickly scanned the document, widening with astonishment as she understood its content. "Are you serious?" she asked, looking up in amazement. "A full scholarship for international law students in my name?" Arthur nodded, enjoying her surprise. "The Lily Hayes Scholarship for Excellence in International Law," he confirmed. "It will fund the full studies of 5 talented but underprivileged students each year. You'll be part of the selection committee if you want." Lily reread the document visibly emotional. "But why my name?" she finally asked. "Shouldn't it be the Sterling Scholarship?" Arthur shook his head. "It's your legacy, Lily. Your name, your merit. I want to be a tribute to everything you've Achieved on your own with your mother's support before I appeared in your life. Lily's eyes welled up. She placed the document on the table and took her father's hand. Thank you, she said. Simply, it's the best gift you could give me. Arthur gently squeezed her hand, feeling that connection that had grown between them slowly but firmly like a deeply rooted tree. There's something else, he added hesitantly. Something I wanted to consult you about. Lily looked at him curiously. I've been thinking, Arthur continued, about changing the company name from Sterling Capital to Sterling Hayes. The surprise on Lily's face was evident. Sterling Hayes, she repeated as if she needed to hear it again to believe it. But it's your family's legacy, your life's work, and now it's part of your story, too. He replied simply, I'm not suggesting you should join the business if you don't want to. Your path is yours to decide, but I want the world to know that I am as proud to be a Sterling as I am to be connected to the Hayes. Lily was silent for a moment, processing his words. Have you talked to Mommy about this? She finally asked. I wanted your opinion first, Arthur admitted, but yes, I plan to consult Clara as well. Her name, her legacy, also deserve recognition. Their food arrived momentarily, interrupting the conversation. When they were alone again, Lily spoke with a maturity that always surprised Arthur. These 2 years have been unexpected, she said, carefully choosing her words. When Mom told me the truth, I didn't know what to expect. Part of me was angry, part curious, and part just confused. I didn't know if I wanted to meet you or not. Arthur listened attentively, giving her the space she needed to express herself. But I'm glad I gave you that chance, she continued, that we gave each other that chance. It hasn't been easy. There have been awkward moments, misunderstandings, even some serious arguments. Arthur particularly recalled a heated dispute about his business policies in Latin America, where Lily's idealistic vision had clashed heated with his business pragmatism. Paradoxically, that honest confrontation had strengthened their relationship. But we built something valuable, Lily concluded with a smile. Something real. It's not the typical father-daughter relationship, but it's ours. It's more than I deserved, Arthur responded, sincerely, and much more than I expected that day in the park. They toasted with champagne, celebrating not only Lily's birthday, but the journey. Traveled, the barriers broken, the bridges built. So, what do you think? Arthur asked, returning to the topic. Sterling and Hayes. Lily considered the proposal for a moment longer. I like it, she finally decided. It's a symbol of union, not just a merger. 2 surnames, 2 stories coexisting with equal importance. Arthur felt a surge of pride. His daughter always found precise words, the essence of things. Things. The meal passed with conversations about Lily's studies, the changes in Arthur's company, increasingly oriented toward social responsibility under his daughter's subtle influence, and shared anecdotes from recent months. As dessert finished, Arthur checked his watch. We should go, he said. Your mother's flight will be landing soon, and I want to be at the hotel when she arrives. He paid the bill, and they left the restaurant together, stepping out onto the snowy streets of Cambridge. They walked in comfortable silence to where Arthur had parked his car. You know what's most curious? Lily commented as she buckled her seatbelt. That all of this started because you attended a graduation you originally didn't want to go to. Arthur smiled, remembering how he had tried to avoid that engagement, how his assistant had insisted on the importance of his presence for a corporate image. Fate has strange ways of working, he replied, starting the engine. Sometimes the best things in life arrive when you least expect them, and in the most unexpected ways. Like a millionaire seeing his ex-housekeeper at a graduation with a young woman just like him, Lily teased, quoting what had now become a kind of private joke. Between them, Arthur laughed, grateful for his daughter's ability to find humor, even in the most complex circumstances. And to think it all changed when I decided to approach, he added, giving her a loving glance before concentrating on the road. Hours later, Arthur observed from a discreet distance the reunion between Clara and Lily in the hotel lobby. The expression of pure happiness on Clara's face as she embraced her daughter reminded him why it had been worth respecting her terms, going at her pace, accepting her conditions during these 2 years. When Clara finally approached to greet him, Arthur noticed something different in her gaze. The initial distrust had given way to a kind of cautious acceptance, and now he detected something more. Gratitude, perhaps even affection. Arthur, she greeted him with a slight smile. Lily told me about the scholarship. It's a very beautiful gesture. It was the least I could do. He replied, She's extraordinary, Clara, and that's thanks to you. A subtle blush colored Clara's cheeks. She looked away modestly. We've reserved a table at the hotel restaurant for dinner, Arthur continued. But first, there's something I want to consult you about, an idea about the company. As the three of them headed toward the elevator, Arthur felt a deep sense of completeness. It wasn't the conventional family he had once vaguely imagined in his youth. It was something different, unique, built on complex but solid foundations, mutual respect, hard-won honesty, and a love that had blossomed slowly like a resilient plant finding its way through cracks in the asphalt. Sterling and Hayes, 2 surnames, too. Stories united by a young woman who had inherited the best of both worlds. And as the snow continued to fall over the university city, Arthur Sterling understood that after a lifetime of chasing success, he had finally found something infinitely more valuable, the happiness of being part of something larger than himself, a family, imperfect and extraordinary, that had begun with a casual encounter at a graduation where a millionaire saw his ex-housekeeper with a young woman just like him and against all odds decided to approach. What do you believe is the lasting legacy of Arthur, Clara, and Lily's journey? And what message about family and unconventional paths does it convey? Share your insights in the comments below.